and welcome to the stream. I hope that you're all doing well. I'm very happy to have you here for our very first interview on the channel with a member of the European Parliament, or the famous MEPs as we call them in Brussels. So it will be the first interview of many, as I already have about 20 other interviews lined up after this one, so I hope the first one will be good. Tonight we will discuss with German MEP Tiemo Wölken from the Socialist and Democrat group, so on the left side of European politics. He is 35, so rather young for MEP, and he has been on the job since 2016, meaning that he joined the parliament in the middle of the mandate to probably replace someone else. But before we start the actual conversation, I will briefly tell you about how we will proceed along with some house rules. So our guest will be with us for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the amount of questions. After that, he will leave and live his own life. But I will keep streaming for 15 to half an hour to 15 minutes to half an hour to discuss with you all about what you thought about the interview, my own interpretation, things that might need some additional explanation, that sort of thing. So I have prepared already a number of questions for Mr. Wölken on my side, and I also collected questions from you guys on Reddit, Discord, and Twitter. You can also ask your question via the chat. I will keep an eye on it during the interview and pick among your suggestions. So feel free to participate and react, but don't spam and stay civil. So the goal of these MEP interviews will be for you to understand better what is the job of MEP. Who is Mr. Wölken in this case, his priorities, and maybe some of his opinions on general EU political questions. So we will not go deep into policy discussion to keep it light, and we will not touch on national politics unless it is relevant to EU politics. So keep that in mind when asking your own questions. Anyway, I hope you will enjoy this. I'm quite excited myself, as you can hear, so let's do this. So, guten Abend and welcome to you, Tiemo Wölken. Thank you again for accepting to do this interview on my channel. Like I was explaining to our viewers, the goal of tonight and of this interview in general will be to put faces on the European Union and help people understand better what is happening in Brussels. And to this end, MEPs are actually perfect for that because, well, you've been elected to represent citizens. So I'm very happy that you and so many of your colleagues have accepted to come on my channel. But tonight we will get to know you better and try to understand what MEPs actually do and think about the EU. So perhaps to start off our discussion, could you briefly introduce yourself and we'll pick up from there?
Yes, I can. So my name is Tiemo. I'm 35 years old, so surprisingly young, maybe for the European Parliament. I am interested in all things digital. I'm also the spokesperson for this. Sorry, I'm just finished my pizza. I'm also the spokesperson for the Socialists and Democrats in the Legal Affairs Committee. And I'm also a full member of the Environmental Committee. I'm from Lower Saxony, so that's the northern part of Germany. And for Lower Saxony, environmental issues are really important. So, as you may know, we have a very high. We have many many windmills, for example. So we are producing the wind. We have some problems with water quality because of too many cows. And so there are many issues which are dealt with in the Environmental Committee. So it was important for me to also be part of that. But I'm also really interested in digital topics like the copyright regulation or the Digital Services Act, and in general, the protection of fundamental rights online.
Okay, well, indeed, that's quite a busy political agenda that you have on your end. But let's go back a bit in time, and can you tell us a bit about how and why you went into politics and later became an MEP?
So, as you already said, so I replaced my successor, predecessor, right?
Yeah.
Who was elected locally, and he left the parliament, and I took over his seat. So this came surprisingly, as he was still also quite young for an MEP. I think he or turned 40, something like this. So quite young for MEPs. And but my interest in politics started as a not as a child, but as a teenager maybe. So in the year 2000, there was an event organized in Buxtehude, my hometown, my former hometown, which I don't know what's the English word for that. It's in German, it's Lichterkette. So people gathered, having a candle in each hand, and we were demonstrating against racism. So a few days earlier, there were people killed and injured by a bomb attack, and this was a sign of solidarity. And when I took part in this Lichterkette, in this I don't know, chain of candles, maybe.
Let's call it a candle march.
Yes, like this. Yeah, candle march. It was, for me, it was really impressive to meet people I didn't know until this night. And we joined all together to send a strong signal against racism. Of course, a candle march isn't sufficient. You need to do more. But for me, it was important to see that you can come together with people from different parts of the town, with different backgrounds, and we were all united in one goal. And as I was quite young back in the days, this was the moment where I realized that together we can be strong. So this was the moment I consider now as the moment where I decided, okay, politics are damn important.
Okay, well, you partly answered the next question. That was a question that came from Reddit. No, actually, that's a perfect introduction. So that question came from Reddit, and actually is about how he was asking you, how can a young EU citizen get into the process of becoming an MEP, and so by extension into politics. So young people are usually disinterested in these matters, so he feels that as a young man himself, it is quite hard for young people to manage and accomplish such a feat as becoming into an MEP.
Yeah, so maybe if you allow me, I just need to add one more topic which I'm taking care of.
Go
ahead. Healthcare issues. So I'm for the German delegation within the S&D group. I'm the spokesperson for health, and my assistant is also following us. And
okay, I can see what's happening.
From time to time, I tried to annoy her and upset her a little bit by not mentioning health and waiting for her reply. And of course, she replied, "You didn't mention health." So of course, healthcare is, especially in the moment, very important.
Sorry, Tara.
Indeed. So the important point in becoming a politician is, I don't know. So my goal wasn't to become a politician. I wanted to work within the parliament. So when I did my intern in the parliament, I was catched by the vibes. So I don't know when you first entered the parliament, but for me it was at the beginning of my studies, and I really when I first entered the third level of the parliament, so the area where under normal conditions everyone gathers and everyone meets, so assistants, lobbyists, members, officials, visitors, journalists, they all gather, they all come together, they speak different languages, they behave differently, and it's such a festival of different cultures. It touches you directly. So at least for me, this was the moment where I decided I want to work for the European Union.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that. I think everyone who works in Brussels at this moment where we are in the parliament and you realize, wow, that's the thing.
Yeah, I think it really is. So and I started after this March of Candles. I joined the youth organization of the German SPD, and I enjoyed my time, and we were really good friends, and We discussed topics. We of course drank some beer, and it was just really great. But we all had at the same time the goal to make our city more youth friendly. So this was my first dip into real politics.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a question for you from the chat from Little Miss Derry, who's curious to know if in Germany you also need to go through high-level schools to be a politician, like in some EU member states, or like anyone actually. Is politics accessible for people, or do you need to have a doctorate or stuff like that?
Yes, it is. But of course, if you look at the stats, for example, for the German Bundestag, you will notice that lawyers are overrepresented, and but they are not all from elite schools. So we don't really have that in Germany. So the public school system, the public universities are quite good, quite successful. So there isn't so much of a need to be to graduate from one university in particular. So this is definitely better than, for example, in France, where I can, so.
Okay, well, thanks for I think, if I remember correctly, you are a lawyer yourself.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. So now jumping to today. So as an MEP, how would you describe briefly the job of an MEP?
Well, it's different from day to day. So of course we have the work on the legal texts, but we also explain the European Union, European politics to citizens. For me, I focus, of course, really much on young Europeans. So that's why I do have my own Twitter channel. This is why I love to visit schools when there is not a pandemic. The discussions are very lively, and they help me to stay grounded, sort of. So not to end up only in the Brussels bubble. So of course, so there's the making laws, writing laws, working together to make the union stronger. Or some colleagues don't want it, but at least that's my goal. It's explaining, of course, it's moderating between different sides, different interests, different lobby groups, and so that's the challenge, to position yourself between these three main pillars of your work. And at the moment, I try to work on laws and try to explain the EU to citizens.
Okay, yeah. So that's for those of you who did not suspect that that's a very, very busy job. I can tell you that having been around MEPs for quite a while, and I think that all MEPs will tell you that it's actually one hell of a job. It's a great job, great job, but it's difficult. So how would you compare the mandate of MEP with one of your colleagues in the Bundestag? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it equal? How would you rate both? Rate it maybe a strong word, but how would you compare?
So as I haven't been a member of the Bundestag, I can't compare it from the inside. But I think what's great is that the Bundestag and all other national parliaments are only the regional parliaments, right? So we are the most important one. At least I consider us as the most important one. And if you take a look at many, you will notice that many laws, which are national laws, are have been influenced by the European Union laws, right? By regulations or directives. So we really are powerful, and I really love the freedom of our job. So when the Commission drafts a piece of legislation, we take it and we can completely change it, and we don't have to pay attention to the Commission, because they are not the government. So, or well, you can compare them to the government, but they are not dependent of the majorities in the chamber, in the parliament. So in the Bundestag, the coalition carries the government, it forms the government. If many members do not vote in line with the government can fall. And we don't have this problem at the European Union level. So when we receive the draft by the Commission, we can completely change it, we can form it. And this is the most interesting part. And I really love that. So we are not bound by coalition agreements, for example. Well, some may consider this is a weakness of the EU system, but as an MEP, it's quite a strength. It's strength. It's a bonus. So it's really positive. So if you want to have influence in the laws you're writing, become an MEP.
Okay, well, our advice taken. Speaking of coalition, actually, so your national party, the SPD, is in a coalition government with the CDU, which is in the EPP here in Brussels. So is there a collaboration in Brussels with the CDU delegation similar to the one in the German coalition back in Berlin, or is there no such collaboration at all between the S&D German and the EPP German?
Of course, I speak to my German colleagues from more or less all parties. Of course, I don't speak to the colleagues from the right side. But there is no such thing that, for example, if we want to pass a report in the Legal Affairs Committee, it's not my first idea to call Axel Voss, who's the coordinator for the EPP in the Legal Affairs Committee. So no, the simple answer is no. There is no direct link between us. Of course, sometimes we share interests, but they're not the natural alliance. So no, I would say it's not the same as in Germany.
Okay, so you're what you're saying is that you are independent from the political coalition that exists in Berlin. Berlin and Brussels are two separate worlds politically, in a way.
Yeah, so there is indeed no fixed agreement to uphold the Grand Coalition in Germany. So we go by case, which makes things interesting and sometimes unpredictable. And of course, we always have to find a majority. And this is easier if EPP, S&D, and Renew are in an agreement. But it's not a precondition for success. So this is what I want to. I hope it's understandable.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. But basically, the one keyword you will hear always when it comes to Europe and Brussels is compromise, coalition building. Yeah. That's the name of the game. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please. Sorry, okay. I didn't want to interrupt.
So you said that you were the spokesperson in the Legal Affairs Committee for the Socialists, so what we call in Brussels a coordinator. Can you explain? That's actually an important role, even if awkwardly enough, it's not something that many people know of. You will not see that on the Parliament website, but it's actually a very important role. So can you explain a bit what is a coordinator and what actually you do as a coordinator?
Thanks God it's not on the website. If it were, even more lobbyists would call. So please don't change it. So as a coordinator, I'm trying to have an overview about all files in my committee. And we, as a coordinator, have to manage the group position on important files. Of course, we have the rapporteurs and the shadow rapporteurs who are dealing with a particular file. But as a coordinator, you have to have the overview. And we decide which group is in the lead of a report, for example. We decide which colleague is allowed to become the rapporteur. So this is a very important task, and you have to do this very carefully because there are, of course, many interests. And as the coordinators, we try to make sure that in the end we have what you already said. We have a compromise which flies. So of course, you from time to time you are voting different positions or in a compromise and an alternative compromise, but we try to avoid that, to have a strong voice within the European Parliament and as the European Parliament, and we try to make sure that we have a strong position when it comes to negotiations with the Council. And our position is stronger if we are united. So of course, this forces us to do compromises. And that's maybe the downside of what I just praise as the great freedom in the European Parliament. So we are not bound by coalition agreements, but this forces us to search and to look for majorities. And sometimes it's only possible to form a majority if you agree to compromises which differ from the original position. But this is part of finding majorities in the Parliament. And as a coordinator, we try to manage this process. And yeah, so we are more or less also the chain part between the group leadership and the members in the committee. So we are always trying to be in the middle and to navigate about cliffs and to make sure that our ship arrives safely in the harbor.
That's a beautiful metaphor. I will definitely steal that from you.
That's okay.
Perfect. So you mentioned that your specialty, so to say, in Parliament, because MEPs often have specialties. They can't cover everything. So your specialties are digital policies, health policies, and energy policy. If I'm not wrong, a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So with these priorities, these interests of yours, what would you say would be like your 3 big political objectives, policy-wise, that you want to achieve as MEP?
So that's easy to answer, but not easy to achieve. So I want to have a European Union which is more ecological and sustainable. So this would be the first point. So this relates to my work in the Environmental Committee. I want to have a European Union which is more digital, and we really need to speed up in this area. And of course, I want a healthy and a social just European Union.
Okay, well, indeed, that sounds ambitious. That sounds ambitious, but well, that's what you're here for. That's what you're here for.
Indeed, without ambitions, it's without ambitions, it's a privileged job, but you would base the potential of the job if you aren't ambitious. And that's my point.
That's a very valid point. So speaking of actually ambitions and visions of why you are an MEP, someone, I don't recall if it was on Discord or Reddit, was asking, what do you think of your fellow MEPs from Die Partei, so Martin Zonborn and formerly Nico Zemsrot, and their unorthodox approaches to being MEPs? Do you think it's good, bad?
It's both. So I like them both, and I think they are doing a tremendous work to make the European Parliament and the European Union in general visible, at least in Germany. And of course, they're using their position to pinpoint some absurdities. But this is also important so that people don't forget the European Union and they understand it. And sometimes they connect it with very important political topics. But on the other hand, sometimes it seems to me that they are missing the first pillar. So if you remember, my description was the first pillar is to work on laws to make the life of people better. And well, maybe I'm wrong, but as I can, from the top of my mind, I don't know that they would have been working intensively on files and publishing actively many amendments to different dossiers. So in the end, they are important, and it's good that they are there. But when it comes to the actual work we need to do, well, I would argue that they're doing this not as intensively as they could.
Okay, a mixed review, I would say.
Yeah, but more positive. So maybe 3.5 stars out of 5.
Okay, 3.5 stars on Yelp. Okay, good to know. So I'm looking at the time.
Is Yelp still a thing?
Sorry?
Is Yelp still a thing?
I think Yelp is still a thing. I see some of my chat refer to Yelp, so I imagine it's still a thing. Not that I use it, but actually that's going to be our homework for after tonight to check if it's still a thing.
Let's see.
Let's see. So going back a bit to the link between Germany and the EU. So Angela Merkel is often described as a cornerstone of European politics and stability. How do you think a coming departure from being a chancellor will impact the EU and the German influence?
So you could argue that Angela Merkel really was some anchor of stability, especially in very turbulent times. But on the other hand, her agenda wasn't very ambitious when it comes to a closer union. So remember in the European Union and the European treaties, in the first paragraph articles, we have this quotation, we want to get an ever closer union. But this doesn't come from alone. Someone needs to work for that, and still the head of governments, the head of governments are still important. So we have not only the European EU Council, but also the European Council, which meets every half a year and sets out the red the big lines, the red lines where the European
the objectives,
Union, the objectives where the European Union should go. And so they are very powerful. And I think she wasted her time as a chancellor to bring the European Union closer together, to reform it, to make it more democratic. So yes, she definitely is pro-European, but she's more of a pro-European who wants to save the status quo. And I am, and many young members and many young people in the European Union, we want to see a European Union which is closer together, which reacts faster, which isn't stopped by the search for unanimous decisions. So and we really had the chance to change, especially the question of unanimous decisions. So I think she wasted a bit of her time when it comes to making the European Union better.
Okay, well, I know that's also an opinion that many people have in Brussels, actually, to sometimes frustrating of being called the Queen of Europe, and actually have a more mixed view of how pro-European she is, even if obviously she's pro-EU and she's convinced about the importance of the EU. But well, I got a few questions in the chat, so I'm gonna run them by you. So first question by Ors, who is asking, how can the EU improve its PR game in your opinion, and how can achievements be delivered to the public better?
So first of all, I think that the parliament really has quite good PR team, public relations team. So I really like, for example, the Instagram account of the parliament, which is informative and not boring. So it's not only stupid politician posts. So, and I think I can't answer how the European Union as a whole can be more visible, and how the European Union as a whole can step up its PR game. But as the parliament, I think, especially the MEPs are important. They need to be more active on social media and more interactive. So not only posting a share pic, not only posting the last press release, that's okay. And some people want to see it, but this is not how you convince new and young Europeans to believe in the project. So first of all, we need to do more interactive communication. That's my assessment. And the second point is we need to be successful in the projects we are dealing with. So for example, buying the vaccines as a European Union together could have been an enormous success story. But in the end, it was destroyed by the member states and the Commission, who acted intransparent, who acted without participation of the public, who in the end claimed that the other party, it's the other party's fault that we don't have vaccines at the moment. But imagine if this would have been a success. This would have been the best advertisement for the European Union. So two things, to be more interactive and to react to criticism. And the second thing, of course, to make successful politics which change the lives of Europeans to a better.
Okay, well, that's indeed. I mean, I can only agree with what you said. I'm not gonna lie. I agree with your points. Another question from chat. This time a bit more policy based. So the John Flip is saying, if I understand it correctly, the European Lobby Register is completely voluntary. Do you think there is a possibility to make it mandatory?
Well, you need to register if you want to meet Commission officials, and if you want to meet, and this is what we changed in our rules of procedure for the Parliament, if you want to meet with MEPs who are rapporteurs, for example, they need to publish the lobbyist's name they are meeting. Unfortunately, not all colleagues do it, but I hope that some NGOs will shed some light on that. And with the new rules on that, we will have transparency rules which apply to all institutions equally. And this is a major step in the right direction. It's not perfect yet, but we just changed the rules in February, and I think we changed it for the good. So yeah, and I'm not sure if it's really not mandatory, but if the viewer says it, I believe it. But in essence, if you want to meet with an official within the council, the commission, or commission official, or an MEP in charge of the dossier, you need to be registered, because we are going to publish your name.
Okay, well, but indeed, there is to an extent, it's already more or less mandatory. Historically, the problem has always been that Parliament and Commission are open to have like a quite strict rules when it comes to lobby register, but the problem so to say has always been with the council, which see itself more as a diplomatic body than a political body. So that's why things have taken years, and it can be very frustrating for people who are working on this issue. So another question that came both from Reddit and from chat, so I'm going to ask it because I feel pressured, is what do you think, do you believe and do you think that EU federation is something that can be done? Is it something that you wish for?
Yes.
Wow, that's a short and nice answer. Okay, so...
No, really. So we need it. So if Europe wants to have a future, we need to get closer together, and we need to work as a real union.
Okay, and so there was a follow-up question in case, see, the Reddit people are smart, they anticipate your own answers. So if yes, how should the political system of such a federation look like? Would it make sense to have a directly elected president of the EU? And should there be only one parliament as opposed to the US, where you have the Senate and the House of Representatives?
No, so definitely you would need the Senate, so you and the House of Representatives. There are different models. So as a German, of course, I'm looking firstly at the German model. So you could imagine the European Parliament as the Bundestag and the Bundesrat, so where the governments of the Bundesländer and the states met, so as the council. So, but there are definitely more options available. Unfortunately, I'm not a political scientist. Sorry. So I haven't compared all the systems in the EU, but in the end, we need to end up in this, because what we really see is, if we want to solve a problem, we need to take decisions by majority. Unanimous could be the exception for the most important parts, the most important decisions, maybe to disassemble the European Union, for example. But for all other decisions, we would need majority decisions, and of course, we need to rebalance the power of the council. My impression is that the council, even if the council considers itself as a diplomatic body, they are not. They are the heavyweight. So they have an enormous amount of staff, and they are supported by the staff in the national ministries. So they are really powerful, and they have a lot of knowledge. And it's really hard for us in the parliament and our teams, our assistants, to keep up with the pure manpower of the council. So this needs to be rebalanced too.
Okay.
I don't know if you share this, but sometimes I think it's frustrating.
I used to work in the parliament, so I mean, I'm go team parliament, of course. So of course, yeah. I mean, I think that everyone who works in parliament, who has worked in parliament, would agree that council has a bit more power, and also does not want to play transparent or to play fair, so to an extent. So they don't like the light. I mean, sometimes you have the impression whenever you're in trilogues, so trilogues are the big negotiation between the commission, the parliament, and the council on legislative text. And when you're in trilogue, sometimes you have the impression that when you're talking to the council is like, okay, yeah, say your thing, go ahead. Yeah, you're like the annoying little brother to an extent for the council, in the eyes of some people of the council. So yeah, I can definitely relate to what you said. So I will anticipate your answer on that on the following question, because it's related to the whole federation thing. So the question was, do you think there is a good reason for pan-European parties like Volt or DiEM25 to exist, or is it better to have national parties building political groups? I expect that you will say it's better to have EU-wide parties.
It's true, and this is why I voted for the model to have at least one pan-European list and one list as we all know it, so the national list, when we had the chance to reallocate the seats which were freed by the Brexit. So the idea was to have 27 a pan-European list with 27 positions, and one member on the list from each country. And this list would have been up to vote in all member states. And the Spitzenkandidat, so the person on position one, would have been the candidate to become the Commission President. And I think this is one of the historical mistakes the Parliament made, that we didn't took this as the chance for an experiment, and to indeed try to make politics, European politics, more seen as EU politics and not as national politics in Brussels.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on the transnational list, if I recall, so the vote, the final compromise was that there would be no transnational list for the 2019 election, but there would be one for 2024, or was it for later? I think there was a clause that say we will do it later, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, to be honest, but this is indeed already a few months, years old this decision.
It's ages ago in political time.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, but still staying on the whole institutional part of the EU. So this, I get a question from it that needs a bit of context. So the initial question was about how commissioners are designated. So I explained to this Reddit user how it works, that each member state nominates its own commissioner. So the French government nominates the French commissioner, the candidate for the French commissioner, the German one, and so on and so on. And then this candidate gets grilled by the parliament. The parliament votes by approving or rejecting the commission as a whole, and then voila, you have a commission. And so the question of this user was: would you consider that this system incentivize the member state to actually send their best people as commissioners, or would you consider it would be better if the parliament was to select the candidate themselves, after which the council would veto or accept the parliament candidates?
That's a very interesting question. I've never thought about changing the system so that we would be the first to vote and the council to veto. So I don't have a final answer on that. But the advantage of the system as it is right now is indeed that the parliament has quite a strong role. Of course, it would be great to vote on each and every commissioner separately. But this year, I think we made clear that we do not accept everyone. We did it in the past, but this year I think we sorted out 3 candidates. So it was quite busy for us, especially in the Legal Affairs Committee, as our task is to scrutinize the financial interests and the declaration of interests of the commissioner designate. So I like the system. So, for example, I can compare it best to the German system, which I know best. So the chancellor is elected by the deputies, but the chancellor can then pick his or her ministers, and they do not need to be approved by the parliament. And I think that we can do that is even more democratic than, for example, in the German constitution. But I would think about the idea to change it so that we pick first and the council needs to approve or decline.
Okay, well, I have to be honest. When this option was put on to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's something I never thought about. I would still prefer the current system as it is, because I think it's fairer to the member states and to the variety of profile and expertise that you can find in different member state. But yeah, that's definitely something worth a few thoughts. To finish on the institutional part, so if you had 3 wishes to change something about the EU, what would you choose to change and why? You're muted at the moment.
Yes, sorry. So the first thing is definitely to become a real union. So a federal system would be great. The second thing would be the right of initiative for the European Parliament. And so the third thing is the question of majority votes. And secretly, and I'm not saying it out loudly, is to get rid of the council.
That's I would not get rid of the council. I mean, for all the criticism I have to the council, but
as I said, they are important, but I think their role at the moment is too strong. And if my first wish becomes a reality, so a federal union, then the role of the council would be accordingly smaller than it is right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now moving on to more communication, and actually something that you've been known about, regarding communication. So as you mentioned before, you've been among the first and few MEPs who have been successfully using YouTube as a platform for communication, and you even on Twitch now. Actually, you're hosting this stream, so thank you for that. So
welcome.
So why do you think most MEPs struggle with these platforms, and how did you deal with it yourself?
So of course you lose some kind of control. And if you enter a talk show or talk format or a debate with a journalist, you are dealing with professionals, and most of the time, so there are unwritten rules. So of course you can be asked tough questions, but there's at least so for example, I don't know if Tara and you, if you agreed on questions and the setting of this stream. So I wasn't aware, so I don't know the questions. You could ask me anything, and in the end, it could be quite bad for me. So if I give a wrong answer, or if I don't answer a question, this could be clipped on Twitch, and it's out there. And how do I get rid of it? I can't. So I think many colleagues are afraid of giving away control, and so you need to be aware of this at all time. So if some of our viewers would cut out the sentence where it said, "I want to get rid of the council," and only uses this as a quote, this could be problematic for me. But on the other hand, so it's I think I really like this format. So thank you very much for inviting me and to allow me to be the first guest here. And I really think that we should do more such formats. And I hope that my colleagues will learn that you can communicate, get in contact with new people and with people who are really interested in politics, but who are not reading newspapers anymore. So I was streaming the US election night, or at least the morning, and I had more than 8,000 viewers at peak. So this is incredible. And this is a huge potential. And of course, this is not every stream. So yesterday, I streamed yesterday on Twitch, and it was, I didn't communicate it beforehand, and we were only 100 viewers, I think. But it was quite nice to see them, and I know already many of them and many of their nicknames, and I'm really happy to see them. And I'm interested in what they are doing. They're interested in what I am doing. So I think it's important to grow your community, and so that's why I can only motivate colleagues to do it in the same way, or in a different way, but at least try their own to start their own channel and just to try it.
I very much agree with you. I mean, you've been basically explain the reason why I started this channel to begin with, but also on the fear that exists in many MEPs about losing control, and also the paradox. I mean, sometimes there is something that many MEPs cannot understand about social media, in the sense that for many politicians, especially career politicians, it's hard-coded in them that whatever they're saying, they have to say it in their own name and own the consequences for it. And for a politician to suddenly go on Facebook, and especially on Twitter, and then whenever they say something, you have tons of random people answering, sometimes attacking them violently sometimes, and people who don't put their name and don't put their actual name. For politicians, they see that as an actual a personal attack. It's something that they can't understand because it's something that goes against their very nature as politicians.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. Did you mentioned you have already scheduled more interviews? Did many colleagues or people you asked decline the request because you are not using your real name but only your avatar?
No, I mean, obviously, as an answer to email, that nobody would say that officially as a reason to refuse. And I mean, actually, many people would just not answer. That's what happened in most cases, which was what I was expecting. Let's be clear about that. But I also had a lot of MEPs staff members who say, "Oh, that's interesting. Can we talk about it on the phone? Can we discuss how do you organize this, etc., etc." I know that I had some staff from MEPs who told me, "Okay, I'm gonna have a look at what your first interview looks like, and then I will see with my MEP if it's worth doing." So again, thank you for that. That's why I was actually quite keen to have you as the first.
I'm the test balloon, right?
Exactly, you're a test balloon, and since you're quite familiar with Twitch, I knew that there would not be like this awkward moment. What there is an audience, what there's a chat, that sort of things. But actually, I had quite a good number of positive answers.
Who is coming next?
Next, I was gonna say that tomorrow, but I can give you a sneak peek. The next one actually is gonna be a French MEP from Renew. So the interview will be in French. That's gonna be in 2 weeks, and then I have 2 more interviews booked for this month. Let me check. Actually, I think at least one is a German MEP. So let's look. March. So I have a green German at the end of the month and a green Finnish MEP also at the end of the month. But to be perfectly transparent, and again, that's something I was expecting. Among the people who answered, I had a lot of positive answer from people from the Green Party and Germans, which was what I was expecting.
Okay.
But then again, I mean, as someone who has been in the shoes of assistant for quite a few years, I know how it works. I know that if you can start something, it's something that is serious, that is not like a rando people just showing up and asking, let's say, bullshit all the time. Then I mean, it's the idea of this channel is to an extent provide a safe space for MEPs who by themselves would not go out there, and also a place for people who do not follow EU politics on the daily to see what's behind the curtain. So that's more or less the whole idea of the channel. But
yeah, really great.
Thank you. So let me check in the chat. There's quite a few questions. I'm just gonna have to do some selections. I'm sorry about that, guys. In the meantime, I see that the Amazing Wolf Skeptic wants to ask a quick question. So go ask your question. In the meantime, I will ask one of my own. So do you have any, again, another question that came out, and I can see Michael is being frustrating. So you know that there is the conference on the future of Europe that is brewing. So what do you think about how is it going to be a good thing beyond the whole governance thing, the whole thing that, oh yeah, there's going to be 6 presidents, that's ridiculous there. Okay, I think we can all agree that it's ridiculous that there is 6 presidents for the conference, but...
This is so typical European.
Yeah.
So the idea of the Conference of Europe was great. The outcome is less ambitious than I hoped, and that we spent weeks and months to find the perfect president, and ended up in finding 6 presidents is typical European, and this is what turns why some people, even if they like the idea of a united Europe, are not impressed by the EU at all. So because we end up in such awkward decisions, and yes, we could answer it with one of the first answers. It's a compromise, but not every compromise is a good one. And I would have hoped for a more ambitious agenda, taking account more serious decisions, especially when it comes to, as I said, the question of unanimity, for example. So I'm a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I'm disappointed as well. Yeah, I'm not gonna repeat. Like I did a rant on Twitter, so if you're interested in that about that chat,
okay,
go check my rant about it. But yeah, I agree. It's a typical Brussels fudge. But at the same time, at the very least, I'm hopeful it will create at least an opportunity with the Citizen Forum to have an exchange. At least I think they did that well, because they say, okay, we're going to organize Citizen Forum, but not only in the capitals, we will put emphasis on young people. So if they actually follow through with that, at least it will bring EU conversation in places where there usually is no EU conversation. So at least kudos for that if they can achieve that. For the rest, well, I don't expect much. Then again, so I will look at the question. So the Amazing Wolf Skeptic was asking me if I was to consider myself a social democrat. I will not talk about my personal political belief, because that's besides the point, especially since I don't want. That's the same reason, especially that's basically the same reason why I'm doing this as MEP assistant and not as myself, because I don't want people to go look at my CV. Oh, he used to work for this MEP, so that means that this channel is the channel for socialists, for Renew, for EPP. I want people to be able to see, okay, this is a neutral space. So yes, I have political belief. Clearly, I worked in Brussels for years, but this is not about my own personal belief. So sorry about that. I can't answer. I'm happy to discuss concrete stuff, but I will not openly say I'm this party, this party, this party. Anyway, moving on to that. So still on the YouTube thing, again, another question from Mikkel, who was asking, should there be a Eurotube, a sort of European political YouTube subspace in the same vein as BreadTube in the lefty Anglo-American YouTube subspace? So that's something very specific. And if so, who should be in it?
Well, I don't like walled gardens and closed platforms. So I would call for more platforms and even interoperability between different platforms. So platforms who aren't the mainstream are important. And so if there, well, I think if there is the need for that, it will develop. So if people think they can't exchange their views securely on Reddit, for example, or on YouTube anymore, there will develop alternatives, and we have to make these alternatives stronger by protecting them from being turned down by the major platforms, or just being bought by the major platforms. So my answer would be different platforms are good and important, but we need interoperability between different platforms to break up the monopoly of existing platforms.
Okay, and I see a counter proposal from the chat. What about European public TV?
Absolutely necessary. At least we have a small project, Arte. For example, Euronews is, well, it's not completely successful from my point of view. But this is always the same. So we say we need a public broadcaster for the whole European Union. We need a European audience. We need European publicity. But in the end, people care first and foremost for questions of their member states. So the idea is great, but I'm afraid that not many people will use it.
Okay, so it's Twitch, it's the chat, you know how it is, so I will have to ask you the troll question. So, if London becomes independent, could it rejoin the EU?
Well, as well as Scotland.
As well as Scotland. So I'm actually curious to see what will
Did
happen.
I say Scotland, yes. Yeah, Scotland.
Yeah, I mean Scotland will have its election in the next few months, if I'm not mistaken. So there could be a way for a second Scottish referendum. So,
well, if they do not destroy their party first. So I'm not following the latest developments, but there is a fight right within the
S&P.
Yeah. So that's of course a pity.
Yeah, I have to say it would be a bit of an irony if the UK, that the Brexit out of sovereignty issues, ended up collapsing on itself because of Brexit. They would be. I would not be happy for British people because that would be sad for them. No. But there would be a form of irony about that. So I'm looking at the time and I see that we're past the 1 hour mark. So I would give you the final word. So let's
yeah.
Go ahead and tell us like your final word before we move on to the next part of it.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for the invitation. It has been an honor to be your first official guest, and I hope that all assistants out there who are watching us at the moment are now encouraged to tell the members that they should also join you and to discuss with you here on Twitch, because I can really recommend it and I think it's really important. So just again, thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to drop in another time, and maybe you will visit me in one of my shows in the future too.
Well, happy to. I mean, the honor is mine first. So I want to thank you very much, Mr. Wölken, for actually taking the time to answer our question. Chat, be nice. Make sure to thank him and go check him out on social media. You can see his Twitter handle in the image right now. I hope that you enjoyed it. I found it a very interesting conversation, and I hope that we will get to see you again either on your channel or on mine channel for other kind of content. So on this chat, we will go to our debriefing of the discussion. And Mr. Wölken, okay. I wish you a good night.
Let me know the results of the debriefing, and good night to you, chat. Stay healthy and safe, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, chat, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? I think it was very interesting. It was very smooth. I mean, I was expecting as much. I mean, he's Mr. Wölken is very used to Twitch and YouTube, so that's why I chose him as a. I chose him. I wanted him to be the very first one. I mean, to a good extent, I would say that I agreed with many things. I mean, as someone who worked for in the EU for quite a few years now, I would not agree with everything, especially on the institutional organization of the EU. For instance, I would say that I'm a recovering federalist. In my youth, I was a very convinced federalist. Now my views are a bit more nuanced about that. I think that if federation happened, it's not going to be before a long time. I am not sure that it would be practical or wishable, but that's another debate. I'm happy to discuss that another time. But otherwise, I mean, he told us things that are very important to understand what actually MEPs do and what Brussels is about. So we talked about compromise building. So the idea that contrary to some member states. So I'm French, so I will talk about the French example. French politics, the notion of compromise is not something that you see often. You have a majority, the majority rules, and the opposition is opposing. That's it. While in Brussels, compromise building is key. That's the name of the game. In a big part of the things happening in Brussels, whether in Parliament, even in Council, in Commission, and even outside in the lobbying, NGOs, etc., etc. The compromise building is the thing. You always spend your time talking with people, say, okay, we agree on that, we disagree on that, how can we find a middle way? So that's something that is key in the EU. That is sometimes frustrating because the fact that you have to find compromises means that sometimes you find you make fudge, meaning it's weak compromises. But that's the way forward to not make everyone happy, but to find a majority and go forward. So it makes things slower. It's there is less panache. It's less. It's not sensationalist in many cases, but it works. It makes things. Go forth, and I think it's a great thing. So I'm also looking up. I had tons of questions, like people on my side and also from chat and Reddit, but I had to skip because I was seeing time running out, and some questions were very, very specific, and we would have needed like an actual full Twitch session to discuss about that. So let me have a look at the chat to see if what everyone thought. So I see some positive points. People support the abolition of the council. You totally agree on getting rid of the council. Council does not represent people, it represents nations, but sovereignty should belong to nations. It belongs to people, therefore to the parliament. That's a good point and a bad point at the same time. I will come back to that once I'm done going through. Go out of here, Mikhail. Abolish the assistant. I'm gonna abolish you. So, Amazing Wolf Skeptic, you don't have to tell me your political views, but can you ask a question? You can ask all the questions you want. Go ahead. Okay, fudge is delicious. Yeah, but it's delicious, but too much fudge can get you sick. Little Miss Dairy saying the best agreement is when no one is happy or when everyone is happy. So great to see MEP communicating through Twitch. I agree with that. So Snow is saying the Netherlands has a compromise system in that through coalition building, nobody really gets what they want, but they can live with the results. Exactly, that's the same thing in Brussels. Okay, let's see. Push the assistant. Disagree on removing the council. Amazing. Okay, are you opposed to the abolition of the state? Yeah, I'm opposed to the abolition of the state. For the reasons I'm not opposed but doubtful of the idea of a federation, because I still believe that whether we like it or not, there is no European nation. That's a fact. It might be something that we start building, but today there is no European nation. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. And I mean, basically, in my view, if you were to transform like the EU into an actual federal state like Germany, like the US, etc., etc., at this point, given that you have so many different nations, history, languages, I mean, at this point, it's not anymore a state. What you call that is actually an empire, and empire usually don't have happy endings. So that's why I'm doubtful about the EU as a federation in the coming years. Ask me in 100 years, maybe things will have changed in 100 years, but as of today, I don't see it happening, and I'm not sure that it would be actually a good thing, because it would be so far away from citizens, but doesn't mean that the EU doesn't need reforming. So let me just go back up in the chat to go back to the point of about abolishing the council. So exactly, yeah, the council does not represent people; it represents nations, and that's a very important point. So you know that you have the three main EU institutions: the Commission, Parliament, and the Council. Actually, you have to see each one of them representing a different thing. The Commission represents more or less the general interest, the European idea, the European Treaty. The general interest of the EU is the Commission. The people is the Parliament, and the Council represents government, represents the state, because something that you must not forget is that the EU is not a country. It's actually an international organization. I mean, to an extent, it's not like the United Nations, so like the UN, but they are definitely common things, and doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. Well, however, that's all points explains why people get so frustrated about the EU, because the EU sits in between the state, an actual country, and a formal international organization like the UN. It's in the middle, and it doesn't know where it wants to go. It wants to be both. It can't exactly be both, so it makes it very special. I mean, I remember back when I was in university, so I studied law and international relations, and one of my teacher about international law told us, I mean, it was just not me, it was the class, told us that the EU was a UFO, an unidentified body, international body. And that's exactly it, because people get frustrated with the EU because they see the EU, they see its potential, but they judge it according to the standards they would apply to member states. So from the things they would expect from their own country. Let's take a basic example. One of the typical example or criticism that you hear from people about the EU, about Eurosceptics, is the EU government is unelected. You don't elect the commissioners. You don't elect the president of the commission. And that is true. You don't elect them. To an extent, you elect them indirectly because of the Spitzenkandidat system. Well, at least while it was alive, now it's less alive. So that's another debate. But on the other side, nobody complains that you don't elect the Security Council in the UN. You don't elect the Secretary General of the UN. Nobody complains about that because everyone accepts it's an international organization. But the EU is judged according to state standards. So that's the EU always has this difficulty that it's in between two kind of different and opposite expectations, and it can't go fully state and it can't go fully international organization. So that's what makes it the perfect scapegoat. Anyway, so I'm going back to the chat after my little rant. Do we need a nation? Oh, okay, we're going deep. I would say that nations are not bad things necessarily. Nation states is still a thing that I think that is current. European nationalism is kind of cringe. Okay. Okay, Snore. It seems that Hungary and Poland, working in tandem, have managed to split the council. Dutch Prime Minister Rutte went as far as to say that a new EU structure would be needed to deal with rule of law issues which are being stopped by Hungary and Poland. What are your thoughts on Hungary and Poland? Well, I will... Well, I mean, it's an easy answer. I don't have a problem with Hungary and Poland. I have a problem with Hungary and Poland governments, and I very much disagree with the... what was the Orban's expression? The illiberal state that they want to create. So I'm very much against this, and it shows that it's more the one of the issue with the EU currently is that it's very hard to get in, but once you are in, it's very difficult to deal with rogue people. So Europatia says illiberal democracy. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for reminding me. But beyond that, it also illustrates that the EU has gone also very far, because today, so Mr. Wölken mentioned that during the discussion about the whole unanimity rule. So the unanimity means that for a certain amount of decisions in council, for something to go through, you need the support of every single member state, meaning that everyone has a veto. If Malta is not happy, they can make the whole thing go boom, which force everyone to go into compromises or to block the system. However, where I agree and disagree with him, because I would not get rid of completely of unanimity. I mean, he doesn't either. He wants to keep it for the most important decisions. And again, it makes sense in his views, because he wants a EU federation right now. So his position makes perfect sense. But the thing is that now the rule. So if you go back 20 years ago, the rule was unanimity, and the majority was only for exception. So for most policy, you would need unanimity in council, and only for small policy, you would have a majority system. Then you had the Lisbon Treaty that actually reversed this rule, meaning that by default, all decisions must be taken by a majority, except for some specific domains that are very important. So, for instance, taxation, budget, defense, these kind of things. And why I couldn't put myself in the shoes of the council and government and say that it makes sense, because in the end, what remains is almost the core competencies of a member state. What actually makes a country, its ability to raise taxes, its ability to decide about foreign policy. So we've already reduced the scope of unanimity decision to the things that are essential. If you go beyond that, well, at this point you are going into a federation, a federalist EU. So Mikel asking, how long do you have to spend in Brussels before becoming a recovering federalist? A few years. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone in Brussels is the recovering federalist, but there are still many people in Brussels who are strongly federalist, and that's very fine. There's no problem with that. But I would say that a lot of people, especially when you arrive as an intern, etc., you arrive with your bright eyes of a fresh student with grand ideas about the EU, and then you meet reality, and you see that things are less clear-cut than you thought. It's not as black and white as you once thought, etc. So what do you think about EU-wide taxes? I could support some EU-wide taxes. Some EU-wide taxes make sense. For instance, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cough a bit. My apologies. For instance, take the digital tax. Digital tax makes perfect sense at EU level and not at national level, because otherwise, you know that we have this problem that many digital companies go establish themselves in Luxembourg, in the Netherlands, in Ireland, which cause also sort of problem. And I see Insol7 say that as an Irishman, he must say no exactly for these reasons, because if you make things EU-wide, that means you're taking away decision power from the Irish, from the Netherlands, from the Luxembourgish, etc., etc. Snore, left field question. Favorite food? That's actually a tough one. My favorite food, I would actually kill for sushis right now. Yeah, I actually would kill for sushis right now. Somebody bring me an intern with sushis. Belgian fries. Belgian fries are actually very good. If you ever been to Brussels, or if you go to Brussels, go to Maison Antoine on Place Jourdan. It's considered one of the best place to eat fries. I mean, that's where Merkel and actually head of state go to eat fries in between council meetings. So Maison Antoine, Place Jourdan, go there. It's perfect. It's great. And yeah, thank you to the sponsor of this stream. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go see Maison Antoine to get a sponsorship. No, I will never get a sponsorship. That's not what this is about. And speaking of sponsorship, I saw that at least some of you subscribe actually to Little Miss Dairy, Insert 7, Kidinuvia Prime, Icarus of Mikhail. So thank you all for subscribing. I was absolutely not expecting people to subscribe. I mean, but I'm very grateful for that. I have no idea how I will deal with that. I was actually wanted to take some time to say, okay, how will I deal with this? But I'm very thankful for that. But then again, don't feel forced to subscribe or to give bits or stuff like that. It's all free. I'm just happy to have you there and take part to the discussion. If there's an Irishman inside you. Yeah, that could lead to awkward discussion. I agree with that. So let's see. Honest question. Okay, I probably missed an honest question. Let's see. Okay, I see people are pissed off with Poland and Hungary, and with some puns about the PiS. So the PiS is the name of the ruling party in Poland. But okay, I think I'm looking at the time. It's 10. So I will. Other than MEPs. Other than MEPs, what are my guest plans? Actually, that's a perfect transition to what I was gonna say. So, to actually have again what I want to do with the channel. So. I will keep it short, but I'm happy to discuss that next time because it's going to be something more chill and that we can discuss. For now, I will mostly have MEPs. I have a couple of other people who volunteered, so I have at least one lobbyist who volunteered to do an interview or to appear on the channel. I just have to think about how to organize this, under what format, etc. But in the future, I would like also to have commission official that they so that they can come to explain a particular EU policy. I would love to have people from the council. I don't think it's going to happen before some time, but a man can dream. So people from the council and the permanent representations. I would like to have EU journalists. I want to have. Basically, this channel is open to anyone who is working in the bubble in Brussels and who wants to speak about what they do, about EU policy, about something that they care about, this kind of thing. And like I said at the beginning, the idea of this channel is to put faces on the EU and allow you to understand what things are about. And also, like I mentioned myself, that EU policy is not black and white, and I'm sure that's a topic I will go back to in some future stream. Like for instance, if you know that if you talk about lobbying, you will get overwhelmingly negative visions about it. Well, it's not clear cut. It's not black and white. It's actually much more. Subtle than this, and I myself would have, for instance, I would have a lot to say about NGOs. I can't say I'm not a big fan of NGOs. I don't have anything against NGOs. It's just that I have a problem with some of their methods. Last interview was with Ursula von der Leyen, but I have to say it in German. I have to say I'm German. That's going to be a difficult one. I mean, my accent does not exactly sound German. And Jan Jurgens is proposing the Committee of Regions. Yeah. I don't know if they will accept. I've been not critical, but skeptical about the Committee of Regions and asking if you can bring Volt's MEP. I would have to double check that, but I think he accepted. So it's a possibility. I would have to double check that, but I think that Volt's MEP was among the one who accepted. Lord Patient is asking, have you watched WandaVision? Yes, I have watched it so far. I really like it. I have to say, very good show. Can't I If you realize the nuances, can't even have Twitch stream without an elected lobbyist. Yeah, well. Oh, Carpaz is saying, my life may have spiraled even more out of control and be in the gutter, but I think about it and I can watch politicians interviewing each other on Twitch with fucking emojis. Well, technically, I'm not a politician. Oh, I'm not a... I'm interviewing a politician, but I'm not a politician myself. Anyway, moving on. So, what we will do next. Next week, there will not be an interview. Because I want to take some time to actually look at the feedback I will get from this first interview about the format, etc., etc. So if you have feedback, give it to me on Twitter or on Discord. The links are in the bio on the channel. So I want to take a week to see that. However, I will still stream next week, but something chill. I will probably continue our adventures on the long dark, but nothing, no political interview. But we will resume the interviews on the 16th of March, so in 2 weeks, with a French MP. So the interview will be in French. It's going to be Marie-Pierre Védrenne from the Renew Group, and then we will have more or less one interview a week. And like I was mentioning earlier, we will have a German Green and then a German Finnish. But from there, we will have more or less one interview per week, so it's gonna be busy, and like I said, it's gonna be busy until mid-July. What's the long dark about? Oh, it's a video game, a survival video game in Canada, where I get eaten by wolves. Zeroth, will the interview be uploaded to YouTube and translated later? It will be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow evening. Translated later, I can't make any promises because I mean I'm on my own, so I will not go through translating everything, and plus I mean I could translate things in French at best, but it would take a ton of time, and besides that, intermediary said, translating the French interview. I will have to see. It would be very long, but if I can, I will try to do it. But no promises. All right. Let me check if I had anything more. Use all that sub money on translator. Well, I could indeed use that for translator. Although translators are actually a bit more expensive than that sub money. I have to tell you. So anyway, I'm gonna conclude because I'm rambling and that's useless. So I hope that you enjoyed the interview and the format. So like I said, give me your feedback on Twitter and Discord, or even here, that matter. The links are in the bio. Next week is gonna be chill. We're just gonna play some games and talk, and I'm happy to discuss a bit about the format and your feedback at this occasion. And after that, we will be back with MEPs with more or less one interview a week. And on this note, well, I thank you all again for being there tonight. I thank all my new followers and my new subs. And I wish you all a good night. And no, I will not play CSGO. Anyway, I will see you soon. Have a good night. Bye bye.